Hi, I'm Angela Fehr. This is part 4 of a 4-part series painting a Bauhinia Hong Kong orchid flower. Links for everything you'll need to paint along with me from start to finish, and the supplies I've used are in the description below this video. Now that this is dried, we can see how much fun the looseness can be. We have a beautiful soft transition in this area that I think is just so fun to look at and gives us just a much softer, fresher feel than the crispness that we have here and the kind of timid washes that are pushing out here, which do add some looseness, but not nearly to the extent that we're getting here. What has also worked well is that I've kept a light touch. I haven't fussed a lot with adding extra color. I really just kept it light, tried not to muddy up those colors once I'd placed them in the painting. And in the areas where I put in that brighter pink, you can see I let it flow and it created a very pretty dynamic in those areas. So right now we're not going to do very much here. What I'm thinking is just to add a little bit of detail, a little bit of additional texture. And what I'm seeing is maybe a little bit of definition on some of these petals here and there. And that gives us that feeling of several flowers instead of just one big shape. And I like to place a few of those colors, several at a time, because then you're not having to clean your brush and waste that lovely color mixture. And then go in and soften a little bit. And then you can go back and touch in additional color if you wish to. And that gives a little bit of variation to that shape. And I haven't changed my colors. I'm still using the same original Rose Madder Permanent and the lavender with a little bit of ultramarine from time to time. And that's really pretty and soft right there. Now, let's see here. Maybe one more shape over here. And I'm looking for balance in my scene, trying to not feel, again, bound to paint all those petals. I have the freedom to say it looks like flowers. Really, it doesn't need much more. If it says that basic message, it's enough. And that's the wonderful thing about loose painting, is the trust you get to show to your audience. When people see your painting, they get to kind of fill in the blanks, and that gives them a feeling of participating in your artwork, which I think is really, really welcome and fun. So let's paint in those stamens that really give our flowers the finished shape. And what you can do is when you paint a stamen like this, you can also grab maybe a little bit of that peachy color we were noticing in the flowers. I'm just trying to mix a little New Gamboge with a little bit of my Rose Madder. Trying yet another yellow. We've tried a couple of different yellows, and there's lots of options here. We're looking for something that's nice and peachy without being too muddy. And I'm just using my small brush still, starting out with just a little shape of that peach, adding a little water to it, maybe going back to the New Gamboge here. And that's giving my flower just a little bit of warm color inside of a very cool overall shape, and that means that I have that warmth will pull the eye towards the painting, towards the center of the flower. And I can do the same over here, maybe a little bit of the peachy color, and then back to my richer pink for those lovely and graceful stamens, which is why I'm using that smaller brush right now. Not all the stamens are pink, some have more of a violet tone, so I can use a little bit of my ultramarine mixed in there to get that feeling. And maybe some, you know, because these are coming out from the flower, this petal is kind of in front of them, so I can maybe paint a little edge there to show that. Add a little water to soften it. And yeah, just beautiful definition that's happening, just enough, but not too much. And that's my goal here, is just not getting carried away. Not saying, well, this is a flower and this is a flower and this is a flower, so each one needs stamens and then I have to put some over here because these are flowers too. I can just suggest maybe a little swoop over there without a lot of detail, maybe a little bit over there, maybe one there, and then leave it and stop. I do want a little bit more, I think, of the yellow. Because a loose painting like this is so much about expression, I really like to add a little bit of looseness and freshness to my painting. Spatter is a lot of fun. And you can see I've just flicked some pale lavender onto my painting. With spatter, you don't have a lot of control, so I'll often spatter and lift. You can also spatter and blend, throw a little spatter on it, then add a little bit of water and blend away some of that color. Sometimes you just want to let those big drops or the smaller drops flow out a little bit across the page. You don't want your spatter to be too strongly defined if everything else in your scene is loose and light. So I like it in some of these areas and then less in others. So you just spatter and blot a little bit. I actually think a little bit of that green could be nice. On the outside of the scene. And by picking up a little bit of water on my brush and then a tiny bit of color, I get a little bit more looseness. And then just looking again for those stronger final details. And right now I'm not looking at my reference photo. I actually find it's preferable to, at this stage, be looking at what makes the painting work, especially in loose painting, because we're looking for effectiveness of transmitting our vision, of sharing what we see. And so by putting the reference photo away, hopefully your eye will be more focused on what works in this context rather than trying to match something that we didn't set out to match to begin with. And just a few little dark detail lines can really show some definition, create that contrast that gives your painting a more finished look. And that line art can happen not just in the flowers themselves. Here I'm just looking for maybe a little bit of shape and shadow in these buds. But it can also happen down below here in our leaves. And maybe it's just a matter of putting a stem or a vein down the center of a leaf, defining one edge of another leaf. And I'm just using the side of my brush to get a line that's both wide in some areas and narrow in others. And to maybe add a little bit of definition to a stem that's gotten a little bit too soft. Another thing you can do is work into your background a suggestion of more of something. Maybe that means something, a hint of a flower petal over in this area towards the edges. Something that's soft and very light, adding a little more water to lighten it even more. Helps give that feeling of more outside the frame. And even just a hint of color can have a lot to say. I'm going to use my toothbrush. Make sure it's clean. I'm going to use my toothbrush for a little bit of spatter as well. Toothbrush gives a little finer spray. And if I'm spattering into these areas that are already moist, it's going to flow and bleed a little bit. And I'm going to pull my spatter right down into my leaves a little bit, and that's going to unify these two very distinct elements, the strong dark leaves and the light and very pale flower petals. Notice how pale the spatter I'm putting down is. It's very light, very subtle. I don't want it to scream in my painting. I want it to serve as an element to pull things together. And don't underestimate the power of a strong dark line. If you have an area in your painting that you just feel like needs to pop out and pull forward a little bit, you can create one strong dark shape in an area that needs to be seen, something like that. And that very darkest dark, it's darker than anything else in the painting, and it contrasts with the light color in that it's right beside. There's a lot of power and impact there that will make those petals just come forward. And that gives the feeling of a leaf there. And I'm really sketching this for your benefit. Were I to work on this with not on camera, where I have an unlimited amount of time in which to study and ponder, I'll be using the same principles, but my composition would start to, but I'd really start to think about composition a lot. And that would mean paying close attention to the way the leaves frame the flowers and how they're arranged coming off of the stem. Maybe just making sure all those shapes kind of flow together in harmony. Here I have two shapes that are very similar, so I don't like that. It's a little too repetitive in this one area, and so that's something that I would probably want to change if I had more time to build on this composition. An area that I am really liking is this flower over here. Beautiful softness and contrast and a lovely shape. There's a lot of beautiful watercolor stuff happening in this part of the painting. The other thing is, if you have an area that's not working really well, something that you might just want to do is end up cropping it. Maybe it would just be a matter of zooming in on the painting, making the painting a little bit smaller to take away from an area that's not working quite so well, that could easily be just cut out of the painting. Painting loosely in watercolor is one of my very favorite things to do because there's so much opportunity for expression here, and it connects with the audience in a way that a more regimented, controlled painting doesn't. So that's something that I love to do and to share, and it's something that you can have confidence that you can do as well. When you see the beauty of those small little watercolor out of control moments, for example, this little green shape flowing into the pink here, it's so pretty that it makes me love fluid watercolor and loose watercolor painting because of the possibility for unexpected things to happen. And so I want to encourage that in my paintings and paint more loosely so that I can have those happy accidents, those beautiful moments. I can encourage them to happen without feeling without feeling like I'm so tied to realism that I can't let those colors come out to play. As a watercolor instructor, I'm passionate about helping you love your watercolor journey, grow in confidence, and paint the way you've always dreamed. Join my community of watercolor lovers by subscribing to my channel, signing up for my mailing list so that you can be the first to hear about new classes, live lessons here on YouTube, and content that will help you grow and love your watercolor journey. I'm Angela Fehr. Thank you for watching this tutorial.